But there are nations that just does not work. Trust me, believe me, this is one of those nations. So Israel has to deal with them. Now let me give you a little bit of, let's go to the flight zones. There are three ways that Israel can, now the red star is Israel. There are three ways that Israel can do this if they need to do it. Number one, oh boy, help me here, Lord, to say what I need to say. Okay. Number one is to fly from Israel over Iraq straight to the coastline, which is the short distance. They have to get permission from the Iraqis, and the United States has to get permission. They were going to do this under President Bush's administration, and Bush said, no more wars on my watch, and he would not give them permission. I was also told, now this is a rumor, but it's a pretty good source, that they were going to do it right after President Obama took office about February and March, and again they said, no, you were not going to give you permission to fly over Iraq. So they have a second option. The second option is to fly over Israel through Jordan. The Jordanians are the king, I should say, has allowed Israel to fly over their airspace many times. Israel actually protects Jordan and has an agreement with them in the time of a war or an invasion or a coup. They could send troops in to defend Jordan because the Jordanians do a lot of work with the Israelis. Fly over Jordan, and they've got permission to go over Jordan. Now listen to this, and they've got secret permission. Now it's secret in the sense of it's not being publicized, and the Saudis will deny it, but the Saudis are scared to death of the Iranians. Listen, Ahmadinejad will overthrow them. He'll take the oil wells from them, and they know it. He'll kill the royal family. You know, they arrested 100 Al-Qaeda people. Did you see that? 100 Al-Qaeda agents in Saudi Arabia. They were going to bomb things, bomb all the refineries they could get a hold of, and try to kill the royal family, and they know that. So they've been given permission to go over Saudi Arabia. Of course, the Saudis will have to deal with that. And someone said, well, why would the Saudis do it? That's the headquarters of Islam. Well, you know what killed them? You know what did them in? When they let U.S. troops come there. See, that already did it with the fanatical Muslims. That's bin Laden's big complaint. The fanatical Muslims don't believe the U.S. or any infidel troops should ever be where Medina and Mecca, the two headquarters of Islam, is. So in other words, that's the third. Now, another choice could be to go over Turkey, but I have recently heard Turkey said no. So that leaves right now two options. Either the U.S. gives them permission, or they have to go through Jordan and through Arabia. Now, if you look on that map, there's a country called Georgia. You will remember that Russia invaded Georgia. Does anybody remember when Russia invaded Georgia? That never made any sense to me whatsoever. So I got to checking around and found out one of the rumors was that the Georgian president had given the Israelis permission to land planes. There were drones there that Georgia was allowing to go into Iran and spy out, and they were Israeli drones. And the Russians came in and captured one of the drones and bombed the Georgia airport, so the Israelis could not use it as a base to go into Iran. So this thing has gotten real deep. China and Russia absolutely do not want the war, and I'm going to explain to you very quickly why. It has to do with retaliation. Now I want everybody to clean your ears out, because this is very serious. What I'm about to show you here is very serious, and everybody should from this moment on be in intercessory prayer. The country of Iraq is next door to the country of Iran. Now there are hundreds of miles that separate Tehran, for example, from Baghdad, a long distance. However, when you have certain types of missiles, those missiles could be released from silos, and while the United States already has, in certain Gulf states, brought in the Patriot missile system that protected Israel in the 90s. By the way, it did a good job, but it didn't do that great of a job, to be honest with you. But they've been working on it, so we can intercept certain things. But if we go to war or Israel attacks, Ahmadinejad, unless Israel uses an EMP to knock out the electricity, which they could, or unless Israel goes in, shuts down the computers, which is possible, if missiles are released, here's the one reason why the U.S. has said we don't want to go to war. I want you to look here at this map, number 18. It has to do with danger to the United States bases in Iraq. You have to understand, do we have anybody here that's been to Iraq? We've got several. Well, you men know our bases are basically outdoors in the desert. They don't have a lot of underground facilities like we have in the Midwest. In other words, in a major war in the U.S., a lot of our military could go underground and be protected at certain times. These bases are in tents or in buildings, and so there would be, from the time missiles got across, there could be a great danger to some of the military bases, and that's what we need to be praying about, that if something were to break out, that our military would be protected. Now, I will tell you this. Let me just stop and just build your faith in the U.S. for a minute, okay? If Ahmadinejad got crazy, in 1 hour's time, the United States military could decimate the whole place, and there wouldn't be nothing. We don't want people decimated, but I'm saying they could if we wanted to. And I've got this for you. The Israelis could if they wanted to. They've got 2 to 3 weapons that if they really had to use them, they could use them. But they don't want to have to use a higher grade level weapon, without me saying too much, unless they would have to. This is reason 1. Now let me give you the second reason. The U.S.'s reason has to do a lot with this, but here's reason number 2. There's not been a war yet. It's called the Strait of Hormuz. Now the Strait of Hormuz is in the area of the Persian Gulf. It's a waterway between the country of Oman, which is to the south, and Iran, which is to the north. It's about 29 to 30 miles wide in its longest part. There are 15 tankers that carry 17 million barrels of oil a day that pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which is 40% of the seaborne oil shipments go through that strait. 20% of all world shipments have to go through that 29, 30-mile opening to bring the oil into the Gulf, up to the Suez Canal, and to take it out to the different places where it's going to be refined. Ahmadinejad has said to the United States, if Israel or America attacks us. Now, Iran does have underwater explosives that if you put them in water and a ship hits it, it will really do damage to ships. But he has already used that in the past. That was used not by him, but that was used in a previous war, so we know that exists. He has placed oil tankers with bad oil along the coast in certain areas. Now, someone asked me when they heard this, why would Ahmadinejad take oil tankers with bad oil, just bad quality crude, and line it up? Is he going to sell it? No, he will explode it. So what he would do is he would explode it and produce massive black clouds, and hopefully interfering with the ability of pilots if they have to see a target, or just the whole general idea of if the winds are blowing toward Iraq, it would create. You saw what happened in Kuwait, how terrible it looked, and how you have to have mask, the gas mask, and certain equipment to go into the places where the oil is burning like that. So he does have plans to do this type of thing. So the reason that we wouldn't do it, and this is a no-brainer, is because if oil got shut off there, the price of oil would skyrocket. I asked a retired colonel who does projections on terrorism. I said, sir, what would happen if Israel and Iran went to war and it affected the Strait of Hormuz? Now, this is what he told me. He said, our projection has been that oil would eventually go up to $250 a barrel. Now, when it went to 148, we paid $4 a gallon, okay? So figure it out. That adds another $2 or so, maybe a little higher. Now, it doesn't last forever, and America has the strategic oil reserves. If I remember correctly, it's enough for 90 days. If we were just to continue going in the United States, we could go off of